Hello everyone, my name is Chpaters and I would like to welcome you to another video. In this video we're going to continue learning and creating foundational programming skills. This video is going to focus on dictionaries. Dictionaries are a useful type of data structures, and we're going to see different functionalities and different ways that dictionary can be used in Python. Alright, let's get started. So dictionaries are basically collections of ordered and mutable, meaning changeable, pairs that follow this syntax. You have key and you have value, right? For instance, I can create a dictionary. Let's not call it a dictionary before we make sure. So I call it an object. My object is equal to, I'm going to add a pair of key and value, right? So for instance, name, I'm just going to use my own name, Ruhollah, and then age 33, education PhD. Alright, so once I create this object and once I run my object, let's try to see it. Now I can see that I have this collections of pairs that I have here. So let's go ahead and use the function type to see what is the type of my object. And it's a dict, which is basically short for dictionary. So I can safely go ahead and instead of my object, call this my dict. So I have a better naming order. Let me also make sure my code is clean. So there we go. So this is my dictionary. So one caution I want to make sure that I leave you with is the fact that you cannot use dictionaries like lists. For instance, you would think that Python would allow you to access this by using the index 0. And that's not the case. You can certainly check for yourself. Once you do this, it gives you an error. It gives you a key error, meaning that there is no such key, right? So it's kind of disappointing, but at the same time, it comes at a great advantage of dictionary. And dictionary allow you to access the values by the key. So for instance, if I were interested to know what is the value of the key name, I can simply access it. Or what is the value of the key age? Again, I can access it very easily, right? Pay attention. If I were to, get access to something that does not exist, such as 0, or I don't know, for instance, date of birth, someone may imagine that I would include my date of birth in this dictionary. Once you run this, this is going to give you an error. So this is a key error. You want to remember that. What do we mean by dictionaries being mutable? So basically, we can change dictionaries to some extent. So let's see how we can change it. For instance, we can add more items to a dictionary. The very easy way to go about this, for instance, you could basically, give a new sort of like a key with a value. So for instance, I can say my dict, right? So now because date of birth doesn't exist, how about the I add it now, right? So for instance, my date of birth, something fictional 00/1985. 01/01/1985. So now this runs, and now once you check your dictionary, this has been added here. There is also another way you can go about this. You can use the function update. This function update the dictionary by the new values, and we'll also see this function can also use to actually update the values of a certain key. So for instance, I want to add state of residence, right? And the state of residence right now is California, right? So once I click run, now once I look at my dictionary, I do see that this also has been added to my dictionary. I can also update these values, right? So for instance, I want to update, this value, and I want to update this value, right? For instance, I want to sort of go back in time. One of the way I can go about updating them is, just like similar here, I was sort of adding a new item. Now I can also use this to update it. So for instance, I could say, well, oops, I made a mistake on my date of birth. My date of birth actually was 1984, right? So once you run this, your date of birth is going to be updated, right? Or also, for instance, I could use the function update. I could say mydict.update, right? And very similar to adding a new pair. I can this time say, hey, oops, I just want to change this to Mississippi. It's the state that I used to live. A very warm state. California has a warm weather, but Mississippi has a warm culture. I love living in Mississippi. But anyway, so once I run this mydict, I can see that this also has been updated here. All right, next we want to talk about how we would go about removing an item from the dictionary. The best way to actually go about this is using the, actually not the best way. There are two ways to go about this. One is using the function pop, and for that you have to provide the key that you want to pop, right? For instance, I want to, for security reasons, I want to pop my date of birth, right? For instance. So with this, I get to use this date of birth once, right? It pops, I have the value, and then if I run my dict and see what's happening, that date of birth is gone here. Another way I can go do this is by using the keyword del, which stands for delete. So I can say my dict, and I can delete, for instance, age, right? So once I run this, that has been deleted. You see, there is no date of birth or age. Another thing I want to mention here is the fact that you can have any sort of value as a data type. So I'm just going to copy this code here. I have created a dictionary of my parents, my mom's name and my dad's name, and also for my date of birth, I am giving the date of birth as a tuple. Pay attention, this is in a string. We had seen that before, but now I'm using my date of birth as a tuple. And I'm using a Boolean logic here, my college degree, do I have a college degree or not? And then for my parents, right, I also pass a dictionary, right? So once I run all of this, I do see that I have a dictionary that has a dictionary inside it and also a tuple inside it. So you can see that dictionary can be very useful to sort of like have a very good structure, structure within structure for your data. So for instance, I can say my dict. For instance, I want to access my date of birth, right? So this gives me my date of birth, but the brilliance of it is now I can access the day, also the month and the day and the year, and also the same with the parent, right? So if I call the key parents, right, of course I'm going to get this dictionary, but at the same time I can also access mom or dad, right? So this is a very versatile data structure. You can actually use it for having multi-level data structures. All right, next we're going to talk about the function length. We have actually seen this before. The function length can be used to tell us the length of any collection. So here is the dictionary. It tells you the number of pairs you have. Very simple. The function keys. The function keys basically is the function that can give you all of your keys. And if at any point in time you just, for any reason, just needed access to all of your keys, right? You didn't want your values. All you needed was the keys. You can just use this function, right? So the keys, and just gives you this list-like value. It does look like a list, but let's see if it's going to act like a list. Can I access this name by using the index 0? Let's just see. Once we run this, we do see that we can't. It gives us an error. It says dict keys is not subscribable, meaning that does not work with indices. But not to worry, we can fix this very simply, right? So I can, now force this to become a list, right? So now this become a list. Now I can, use the index. Another good function is .values is similar to .keys. The only difference is that .values gives us all of the values, right? So let me copy this and let's just use as .values. And once you run this, it gives you all of the values. Similar to the keys, this is just looks like a list, but does not work. It's not subscribable. So for us to be able to have that functionality, we have to cast this as a list. Now once this is a list, now we can also do anything that we would do to a list. For instance, 1, and this gives us the birthday. Another useful function, we'll see that we'll use this more often in loops, but you may use it in other places as well. It's basically giving you a tuple of tuples, right? That the inside elements of the first tuple is basically the pairs of the values. So basically, it switches your dictionary to a tuple, right? So let's just see how it looks like. So my dict dot items. Let me just type it out. Items. It gives you all of your pairs in form of tuples, right? So I could also force this to become a list and access my pairs as tuple if I want, right? So that's also going to work. All right, now I want to talk about the functionalities of the operator n for dictionaries. Operator n is not something that I'm just introducing it to you right now. We've talked about this before. Whenever we want to check if an item is in a collection, we can use it. The way we use it with dictionaries is, basically we want to check if a key is in a dictionary. Do you remember a few errors that we saw earlier, right? So one of the error was due to the fact that the date of birth was not in your dictionary. How could we have prevented this? And that's the question we want to answer, and we can use the function operator n. So for instance, we do know that what is in our dictionary. For instance, the date of birth is not here, right? So if I say date of birth, it's actually date of birth is there. My eyes failed me. Let's see what's not there. Let's say age, right? So age is not in there, but for any reason during our code, I don't have that insight, right? So I want to make sure that before calling a key, make sure that the key is in the dictionary. So I could simply use a conditional, say is age, this key is in this dictionary, only if in that case I want to access it, right? So once you run this, nothing's going to happen, but also pay attention, nothing happens. You don't get an error, right? So if I had changed this to DOB, right? So if I do this every time instead of just accessing, I am making sure that I'm never going to create an error, right? So that's the way you could use the operator n. And pay attention, when you use the operator n for a dictionary, it's going to check with the keys, not the values. Next, let's talk about the function get. the function get is very similar to you just calling out your key, but the difference is once you use the function get, it allows you the opportunity, right, to pass something else, to sort of like have something to work with, right? So for instance, I can say something like, sorry, not in the dictionary. If it's not in the dictionary, if this DOB is not in the dictionary, this is going to what you get. But DOB, of course, is in the dictionary. But what about something else that was not there? This is going to pass this value, whatever it is. So it's going to be a very, very useful sort of like function in a solution that is, has multi-level and it's multifaceted. Another function we'll talk about is the function setDefault. With this function is very similar to get, but the difference is, when you use this function get, your dictionary is intact. It doesn't change the dictionary, right? But the function setDefault, if you use it, it will sort of give you this opportunity to pass something, to sort of like give some answer to this request. But at the same time, it also updates your dictionary. So let's just take an example. So for instance, instead of, this value, instead of the, let me use this setDefault. And for age, let me just use 33, right? So once I run this, it does give me the 33, but at the same time, if you look at your dictionary, now this also been added to your dictionary. So that's the difference between setDefault and get. So let's shift gear a little bit here and see about filling up a dictionary using a loop. We did see that. We did see how we would fill up a list using a loop. It's kind of similar with the dictionary. So for instance, we want to create this dictionary that the keys are numerical or integer values 1 to 31, and the values are the string 2-digit of those numbers, right? So it's the string 2 digits of 1 is 0, 1, right? So why would we ever need such a dictionary? In the future, you will see that there are cases that you want to replace values of your data, for instance, from the number 1 to the string with 2 digits, or vice versa. And this dictionary is going to be making it easier for you to do this change. So never mind about that. This is something that you will see in the future. But right now, what we want to, instead of having to type this out, do this using a loop. So there are 2 ways to go about this. I'm just going to show you. So the first one is doing it with a traditional loop. So let me create my dict. It's an empty dictionary. So for I in range. So I create my loop structure, and then I simply add my key and my digit, right? So for us to be able to do this, we have to use a conditional, because before the value of 10, there is a specific format that we have to follow. So we can use a conditional, of course. If I smaller than or equal to 10, then I want to simply say 0.format I, and else I can simply say is equal to a string of I, right? So once everything is done, I can simply say my text, and I will get what I want. So there is a logical error here. I have to change this to smaller than 10, right? You see, this is a logical error. So once I run this, now that's been fixed. I could also have done this using list comprehension. Right? Do you remember list comprehension? Just using a loop in one line to fill up collections. So let's just give it a try. So here we are going to have I, and we have to be a little bit smarter about this part of it, right? Let's do some experimentation on the side. So I have str1, right? So this is 09, and str2, this is 12, right? So I want to use a way to capture only the number, right? So how about I use something like this, -2. This needs to run first. It gives me that. And how about this one? It also gives me what I want. So this is possible, right? So let me go back to my list comprehension. So now I have a 0.format I, but I only want this part, which is basically starting from -2 all the way to the end. So it's going to be, this is -1, this is -2, so it says -2 till the end, and the same for here, -1, -2 till the end. And this is called slicing. So I'm slicing this string, and we haven't talked about this yet, but in one of the future videos we're going to talk extensively about slicing. Basically, I'm slicing this string. I'm just getting one part of it using this colon, and the same for here. So now I have this. So I say for I in range 32, and now that I'm thinking about it, this is not needed, so I have to change this from 1 to 32 as well. So let me fix this. That's fixed. This has to change from 1 to 32, and there we go. So we have what we want, just one line of code, and that's the beauty of it. So let me get rid of this stuff. And this is list comprehension. So we've already done that. So let me move that here. So this is the list comprehension way of doing it. Alright, so now let's talk about looping through a dictionary. There are two ways we can loop through a dictionary. One of them is the simple one. So we basically say for I in range actually we loop through the keys. For I in my tick.keys, right? So for instance, I can print the key, and also I can print the value which I need to access this way, my tick, using a key. So let me add a divider for good size. So once I run this, now I'm accessing everything in this loop. I could have done this a little bit neater by using the function .items. It would be just much neater. So let's just do it. For key, then value. See how neat this is? My dict.items. Now I have the key and the value on each iteration. So it's pretty neat. And print the divider. There we go. Having a syntax error, and this is, there we go. Alright, so the difference between these and the previous one is I'm using .items, and now don't need to do any accessing, right? So I've got the key and the value, but here I need to access the dictionary for the value using the key here, right? So this, the second way is much more neat. Alright, so let's look at this example. In this example, we've got two lists. The first list is the name of the month in 3-letter format, and the second list is the name of the month in complete format, right? So I want to use a loop to create a dictionary where the keys are these 3-letter format and the values are these these complete formats. And this can be easily done using a list comprehension. Let me use the list comprehension first, and then we will do the other one. So let me run these two first. So these are run. Simply I could say I, and also this one as well, I. So this is the structure. So now I create my list comprehension for I in range, and I know this is 12, so I use the number 13. Or I could instead, actually I use the number 12. Or I could instead, use one of these two. It doesn't matter. So once we run this, we have our dictionary the way described. You could have also done this using a simple loop. So I could have said month dictionary, just an empty one in the beginning. So for I, let's just go through the one of the lists. So let's say key in enumerate. Let's use this one, and then this month dictionary will be the key, and then the value will be coming from the F2, and I'm using this index. So once all is done, I can report this out, and I'll get the same thing. And of course, you can see that this is much more elegant way to do this. How about when we want to merge dictionaries? For instance, I want to merge dictionary 1 and dictionary 2. If you pay attention, we've already seen a very easy way to do this. We could use the function update to update one of them, right? So they update dictionary 1 using the dictionary 2. I have to run these so they are introduced. Now, once I run dictionary 1, you see it's been updated. There is an easier way to do this as well. And let me just copy these. So dictionary 1 and dictionary 2 are fresh and are not updated already. So dictionary 1 and dictionary 2. So I'm just updating them. So now there is another way we can do this. Once we are in a collection, when you use $2*, this is the operation of opening, or it collapses the collection and only their values remain. You cannot do this outside of the collections. You have to do this inside the collection. So once you do this, this just gives you the same results. So let me ask you a question. I have this dictionary, right? So This is my dictionary, right? And once I run this, I would expect to see 1, 2, 3, and then another one of them, right? So I'm sort of like, combining these two. What's going on? Why is it not working? If you pay attention, it goes all the way back to the definition of dictionary. It's an ordered, mutable collections of pair, and we actually didn't talk about it. I thought we did, but these collections of pair have to be unique, and you cannot have two keys, right? You cannot have duplicate keys. You can only have unique keys, and because of that, when you use something like this, and you already have all of these keys, the Python only keeps the first one and ignores the second one, and that's why this seems like it's not working, but it's working perfectly. Alright, so let's finish this video with an example, with an actual example. So we want to use dictionaries to see if the following strings are anagram to one another. What's an anagram? Anagram is a word, phrase, or name formed by rearranging the letters of another, right? So for instance, this is an anagram of this word. And we want to write a code that tells us, without having to do it ourselves, if two strings are anagrams to one another. So let me just copy these two lines of code first. So let's start here. And one of the first things I want to check is if these two strings have the same number of letters, right? So first of all, I check if the length of a string 1. Actually, let's make this easier. S1 and S2, right? Why do we want to make it harder? So S1 is not equal S2, then print no. So we run this, it doesn't print no, they have the same number of letters. So next, we have to, go through the letters of each of these strings and count the number of letters. Right, so once we have the dictionary for S1 and we have the dictionary for S2 that have all the letters with the number of times that have been appeared, and if we compare these two dictionaries and they're exactly the same, then we would know that these words are anagram to one another. So let's get started. So I want to have a list of strings. How about if I force the string to become a list? Let's see if it works. So if I run this, now it's a list, so this is good. So I call this L1, and I also want to have unique lists, right? Because I want to have a dictionary. So I remember when we were talking about the set, we would say the casting a list as a set would make sure that we only have unique values and the duplicates are taken care of. So I call UL1 the unique list, and then I will do a set of these lists. Let's first see what this is going to be. So this is a set. All the duplicates are gone, and now I want again make this a list because I want to loop through it. So now I give it a name, UL1. There I go. So now I have that. So now I need, actually let me change this to L and UL. Right. So also I can change this to L, right? So for the purpose of making this easier. So now I loop through the letters in the UL, right? And I create a dictionary, right? So let's call that, word, call that L dict or letters dictionary, whatever you want to call it. And now every time I get to a new letter, I assign the value of the count, right? So I count the number of values in that list, right? So once this is done, once I run this, this is what I get. So I've got 2L, 2T, 2A, and only one of the others, right? So I can call this list dictionary 1 because this is for the first one, and I can copy this, the whole thing, and create one for the second string, right? So now I get that as well. Oh, this is dict 1. Here we go. And dict 2. Now this works. There we go. There I go. So now all that remains is that for me to check lict 1 and lict 2. So I can simply use a loop for let's just use the first one, key value in the items, right? And if key is not in the lict 2, meaning that there is a letter in one string that is not in the other, so I would print no again. And if the value is not equal to the value that would have for the same key or for the same letter, then I would also use this. I would also print no. And if everything passes, then I would print yes, right? So print yes. So once I run this, it of course prints yes because those words are actually all anagrammed to one another. So I know we haven't studied and learned functions officially. We will do that soon, but let's go ahead and turn this into a function. And it's not a very complicated thing. I mean, we just say define a function, we give it a name, check. I'm not good at spelling, so I have to copy this, check anagram. Basically want to see if something is anagram or not. Right, so then S1 and S2 are the inputs, and we're going to return something, right? So that's all there is to it. So let me copy everything that we have here. So first thing is if the letters are not the same, then we would actually, instead of printing, would return false, right? So this is the best way to do this because you could use this as in a Boolean way. And after that, we do our due diligence to create this list dictionary 1. Right, so this is our list dictionary 1, and then also we don't need to report it out. Also, we create our list dictionary 2, right? So one more time we do that. So let's make the code look a little neater. All right, so this is it. We don't need to report it out, and then we bring the for loop that we checked everything in there. So now our for loop, everything's here. So now we return instead of printing, this is false, return another false, and eventually return 2. Alright, there we go. So this is our function, and now instead of having to type everything, I can simply use this function, right? So I can say string 1 and string 2. So once we run this, it says true. Let's actually make them not to anagram. Let me add an A here and a C here, for instance. So once we run this, this says it's false. Alright, in this video we talked about dictionaries. We saw many different functionalities of dictionaries in Python, and we saw a couple of examples for us to understand dictionaries.